I wasn't looking for a job. Not really. But you know how life is. It backs you into dark corners, leaves you with no easy way out. And sometimes, the only escape is through a door you never wanted to open in the first place. The ad was tucked in the back of a diner newspaper, one of those local throwaways with crossword puzzles and church announcements. I was nursing a cold coffee and a hangover when I saw it, smeared between a used car sale and a garage band gig flyer. Night shift attendant wanted, the Celestia Theatre. Midnight to 6 a.m. Must be comfortable working alone. $120 cash paid nightly. The listing was simple. No company logo, no flair, no experience is required. A phone number was scribbled in red ink. That last part grabbed me. $120 cash paid nightly. No paperwork, no questions. I had $12 in my checking account and an eviction notice on my fridge. I didn't care if it was a shady gig, mopping floors, or babysitting rats. If it paid, I'd take it. I stared at it for a while, the cheap paper softening under my fingertips from the syrup on my hands. Celestia Theatre. The name hit me with a jolt of nostalgia. That place had been shut down for, 7-8 years now? I remembered sticky floors, faded movie posters, and those gaudy red velvet curtains that never quite closed all the way. It used to be the place in town before the new megaplex opened up on the edge of the freeway. Then one day, the Celestia just stopped showing films. No grand finale, no announcement, just one locked door and a closed until further notice sign that never came down. I called the number that night. The voice on the other end was cold and flat, like someone reading off a teleprompter in a language they barely understood. "You're hired. You start tomorrow," it said. "Be at the side entrance on Crosswood Street. 11:45 sharp. Do not be late." No questions asked. No paperwork. No name was given. Something in me hesitated. But desperation has a way of silencing good instincts. I should have known better. But $120 a night, cash under the table, was more than I could say no to. The next night, the sky hung low with clouds. I walked through streets hollowed by winter. Even the wind sounded tired. The Celestia Theatre stood at the end of a crooked alley, its crumbling marquee looming over me like a tombstone. There it was, the side door. Heavy metal, painted the same shade of maroon as dried blood. I knocked once, then twice. It creaked open slowly, revealing a tall, thin man in a brown corduroy blazer and a tie that looked older than me. His face was long, waxy, and pale, like he'd just been carved out of candle wax and hadn't quite set. "Elwood," he said. Just that one word. No handshake, no smile. His eyes looked like they'd forgotten how to blink. "I'm Arthur," I replied, though he had not asked. He nodded slowly as if that confirmed something. "You'll stay in the front lobby. Keep an eye on things. Don't leave the building. Don't touch the projector. And whatever you do..." He paused. His eyes locked onto mine with such intensity, I almost forgot to breathe. "Don't go inside the screening room. Not after midnight." That was it. He handed me a set of heavy brass keys, the kind you'd expect to find in a Victorian asylum, not a rundown theater. Before I could ask why I shouldn't go in, he was already walking away, disappearing into the dark hallway behind the concession stand without a sound. I was alone. Inside, the air hit me like a breath from the past. The lobby was frozen in time. Same gold-framed posters, same ticket counter, same cracked tile underfoot. A thin layer of dust coated everything, disturbed only by a single set of footprints leading from the door to the concession stand. I stood there for a long minute, unsure if I was in a job or a nightmare, but I needed the money. So I took my seat at the old ticket counter, where a faded poster for House on Haunted Hill still clung to the wall behind me like a warning. Midnight was only 10 minutes away, and something about this place felt like it had just woken up. The theater was so quiet it made my ears ring. Time moved strangely there, like it had fallen out of sync with the rest of the world. Every creak of the walls and every groan of the building felt louder and closer. The lobby was a time capsule. Everything looked exactly as I remembered it, yet wrong somehow, like a dream version of the Celestia. The patterned carpet was moth-eaten and threadbare. the glass popcorn display smeared with ancient grease. A faint scent of butter and mildew hung in the air like a ghost that hadn't realized it was dead. I sat behind the counter on a torn swivel stool. The old wall clock ticked with a stubborn rhythm. 11:59 p.m. I checked my phone. No signal. When the clock struck 12, something shifted. Something hard. Then I heard it. A footstep. Not the groan of the building settling. Not a mouse in the wall. A deliberate, heel-to-toe footstep on the carpeted floor of the screening room. I froze. I shook it off, chalking it up to nerves. I hadn't worked a night shift before, and being alone in a place like this would mess with anyone's head, right? Elwood's words echoed in my head. Don't go inside the screening room. Not after midnight. But maybe someone had broken in. Maybe it was just a homeless person. Or a junkie. I opened the drawer under the counter, found a flashlight with dying batteries, and stood up slowly. The entrance to the screening room was framed by two thick velvet curtains, tied back like an open wound. I couldn't see anything beyond the shadowed doorway, just the vague suggestion of rows and rows of empty seats. I didn't go in, not yet. Instead, I checked the CCTV monitor mounted above the counter. It was black and white, grainy and glitchy, but it worked. 4 camera feeds. The lobby, the projection booth, the back hallway, and the screening room itself. All clear, except the screening room feed. Not fuzzy or distorted, full-on dead channel static. And it had been fine earlier. I remember seeing the empty seats when I first turned it on. Then, just as I leaned in for a closer look, the static flickered, like a skipped frame, and for half a second the feed showed a figure. A woman, row C, center seat. Just sitting there. Alone, motionless. Her face, hard to make out, like the camera lens refused to focus on her. The screen snapped back to static. I stared, unsure if I'd imagined it. I jerked my head up to look through the glass window that peered into the screening room from the lobby. The seats were mostly lost in darkness, but I squinted, and for a second, I could have sworn I saw a shape move between the aisles. Just a flash of white, like fabric or skin. Then nothing. I backed away from the glass. My flashlight flickered. The door to the screening room, the one I hadn't opened, was now ajar, wide enough for someone to slip through. I should have walked away, locked the screening room door, left the keys on the counter, and disappeared before the sun came up. But I didn't. Something about that single frame of her, so still, so wrong, burrowed into my brain like a splinter. You don't realize how fast curiosity mutates into obsession until it's already rooted in you. That image, it felt like it had been waiting. I told myself I'd just take a quick look, just to confirm no one was in there, just to shake off the unease, just to prove I still had control. The screening room door creaked as I pushed it open, every inch heavier than the last. The darkness inside felt thicker than normal, like the air itself had grown dense. My flashlight flickered to life, casting a pale, unreliable beam across the rows of seats. Empty. I took a few careful steps in. The screen was blank. No glow, no projector running, just a great white sheet of silence. The theater was cold. Not forgot to pay the heat. Cold, cemetery cold, and quiet. But not still. The kind of quiet that makes you feel like someone's holding their breath just behind your ear. I turned to leave, only to hear a sound I can still feel in my bones. Laughter. A woman's laugh. Soft, dry, echoing between the walls, like it was trapped in the fabric of the seats. I spun around, flashlight shaking in my hand. Nothing. No movement. No shape. But the sound lingered. I backed out of the screening room and shut the door behind me, double-checking the lock. I returned to the counter. The CCTV feed for the theater was still static, but the projection booth feed? Now it was rolling. The projector was running. I took the stairs up to the booth one step at a time. The air grew colder the higher I went, and I started seeing my breath in clouds. Every creak of the old wood felt like it echoed for miles. The door was ajar. Inside, the booth was just like I remembered it from my childhood curiosity. Metal reels, frayed wires, scratched up film cans, dust thick enough to write your name in. But one thing stood out, a reel already threaded into the projector. No label, no box, just running silently on its own. Next to it, a note scrawled in frantic handwriting. Do not play it again. She comes with the reel. My hand moved before my brain could stop it. I reached for the film, but the projector jumped, like it felt me touch it, and the image snapped to life on the screen below. I peered through the dusty booth glass into the screening room. The theater seats glowed with the light of the film. And there she was, row C, seat 7, the same woman I'd glimpsed in the CCTV monitor. Her dress was white but old, not a wedding gown white, more like funeral white, stained and dull. Her hair hung limp over her shoulders, too long, too straight, and her posture, it was off. Like she wasn't just sitting, like she'd been set down there, carefully, like a mannequin. Then she moved, only her head, slowly, precisely, it turned, until she was staring straight into the projection booth. Straight at me. I stumbled back from the window. My flashlight dropped and clattered against the floor, and on the screen below the film changed. It no longer showed her. It showed the projection booth, from a slightly different angle, from behind me, and in the frame, my back, and her, standing just inches behind me, her hand reaching toward my neck. I spun around, but no one was there. But the air behind me was freezing, the kind of cold that bites, that clings, that feels wet somehow. Then something brushed the back of my neck. I didn't scream. I ran. I don't remember leaving the theater. Just that I ended up outside, gasping on the concrete, covered in dust and sweat, staring at the side door as it slowly creaked shut behind me. I drove home with my hands shaking so hard I could barely keep the wheel straight. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sitting there, row C, seat 7, staring, smiling, waiting, like she knew I'd come back. I stayed out of the Celestia for 2 days after that night. Didn't sleep, didn't eat, just sat in my apartment, blinds drawn, staring at the dusty brass keys on my kitchen table like they might slither off on their own. The air in my place had changed too. Heavier, colder, as if the Celestia had left the door open and something had followed me home. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the reel spinning, and I started seeing things. Not full apparitions, just quick, flickering flashes. The back of someone's head in the hallway mirror, a pale figure behind a street lamp. My phone screen lit up with her face for a fraction of a second before going black. But it wasn't until Mike vanished that I realized what I'd done. He was the only one I told. I didn't expect him to believe me, but he did, far too easily. This sounds just like the Belgrove case, he said over the phone. You remember? The haunted projector. 8 disappearances. Mike had been obsessed with local hauntings since college. Carried obsidian in his pockets, black salt in his backpack. He was half conspiracy theorist, half ghost hunter, but he was smart and more grounded than people gave him credit for. I'm coming with you tonight, he said. I wasn't planning to go back. You don't have a choice, he said. You already opened the reel. We arrived just before midnight. The street was dead quiet, and the alley was darker than usual. The side door to the Celestia stood open, swaying gently, like it had been expecting us. Inside, the theater buzzed with life, but not the warm kind. The chandeliers were glowing. The popcorn machine was humming, but there was no power running to the building. Mike's EMF reader screamed the moment we stepped inside. Jesus, he whispered. This place is charged. We moved through the lobby slowly. Everything looked cleaner than I remembered. The counters weren't dusty. The walls looked freshly painted. The ancient film posters were gone, replaced with frames filled with my photos. Only now there were scenes from inside the theater. Me in the booth, me looking through the glass, me sitting in row C, next to her. I hadn't done that. Yet, we heard the hum of the projector before we reached the stairs. Mike's hand went to the pouch of black salt at his back. If she's feeding off you, we have to break the ritual. Block the reel. Close the loop. How? I asked. He pulled a small silver mirror from his coat. We reflected, trapped the loop in itself. It's like holding a mirror up to another mirror. You create an infinite loop. Spirits feeding off storylines can't exist in closed circles. They get stuck. You think this is a storyline? He looked at me grimly and said with deep breath, I think you're not the main character anymore. We stepped into the theater. Rows and rows of filled seats. Every chair was occupied. The silhouettes didn't move, didn't breathe, just sat, staring forward, necks too long, limbs too thin, faces like melted wax. The glow of the screen flickered across them, casting dancing shadows like they were burning. Mike whispered, They are watching. Then he pointed at the screen. It wasn't playing a movie. It was playing us. Live footage. We saw ourselves, from a high angle, standing in the back of the theater, watching ourselves, watching them. This isn't a reel, Mike said slowly. It's a feed. It's filming. Right now. Her story, your story, mine story. The audience began to move. First one, then two, then all of them, shifting in their seats, tilting their heads in unison, toward us. Mike muttered, This is how it starts. She appeared in the aisle. Just like before. The woman in white. Flowing dress like smoke. Long black hair swaying. Eyes like empty camera lenses. She glided down the aisle, past the frozen audience, and turned her gaze directly on me. But this time, I didn't freeze. I stepped forward. Who are you? I shouted, my voice breaking against the velvet-lined walls. She tilted her head. Then slowly she smiled. But it wasn't cruel. It was almost sympathetic. She raised one hand and pointed at the screen. The image changed. The audience vanished in the screen. The camera moved in, fast, toward one seat in the third row. Seat 7, where she had always sat. Only now she wasn't alone. I was sitting next to her, staring straight ahead, expressionless, wearing an usher's uniform. The reel began spinning faster. Mike told me to pour the salt circle around us and held the mirror to the screen. We're not playing your ending, he shouted. You don't get to rewrite us. The mirror cracked. The sound split through the theater, like tearing flesh running through a phonograph. The audience stood up, all of them, and they began to clap. Slow, endless. Their hands bled as they clapped. Their mouths opened too wide. No sound came out, just the click of film skipping. The light in the theater dimmed. Then she was right in front of us, no longer floating, now towering. Her mouth opened. Black film unspooled from her throat, winding around us like tape. Mike screamed, "Reflect her!" and shoved the mirror against her chest. She vanished. I woke up on the floor of the projection booth, alone. The reel was still spinning. The screen below was dark. Mike was gone. No sign of him, no salt circle, no mirror. Just his flashlight, cracked on the floor, blinking faintly. And a single item resting on the projection table. A new ticket stub. Row C, seat 6. Mine. I didn't sleep after that. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't trust what might happen if I did. I couldn't find Mike. And when I tried calling him, the number wasn't just disconnected. It was like it had never existed. His contact photo was just static. His apartment was locked, dark, and empty. I even drove to his parents' place. They said he'd gone out of town a few days ago. Didn't leave a note. They didn't seem surprised. They didn't seem aware. It was like he'd never existed in the first place. The only person left who might have answers was Elwood. I called him just before dusk. He answered on the first ring. He didn't sound surprised to hear from me. Didn't ask how I was. "Meet me," I said. "You know why." All he said was, "You saw her." We met at a diner on the edge of the town. Elwood looked even worse than I remembered. His skin had taken on a gray hue, his eyes hollowed out like someone who hadn't slept in a decade. This time, I noticed the way the waitress looked at Elwood. Not like she recognized him, like she feared him, like he was a regular that no one talked about. He sat across from me, a steaming mug of black coffee in front of him. He didn't speak until I dropped the ticket stub on the table. Row C, seat 6. Elwood stared at it for a long moment, then sighed. "You saw her again," he said flatly. "You knew," I snapped. "You knew what this was, what you were sending people into." His expression didn't change, just grew more tired, more hollow. "You need to listen," he finally said, voice a low rasp. "And you need to listen all the way through, because if you leave before I'm done, you won't make it through the week." I didn't say anything, just nodded. "You think I'm the villain," he said. "That's fair. But if it wasn't you, it would have been someone else. She always chooses. The real always wakes up. We just try to guide the process, delay the damage." "What is she?" I asked. He shook his head. "Her name was Eva Vale," he began. "A silent film actress. Minor roles, never a star. She did one last film, the final screening. The director said it would make her famous. It did. On opening night, the theater was packed. A fire broke out, sudden, merciless, and without a known cause. No one ever figured out how it began. Eva died in the blaze, burned alive. They never found her body. Shockingly, the reel also disappeared." Elwood paused, stirred his coffee without sipping it. His hands were shaking. Years later, the reel came back. There was no name or sign of where it'd been. Just sitting in the projection booth one morning, like it had been waiting all along. We played it, just once. We shouldn't have. Ever since, it plays itself. Anyone who sees her on screen really sees her, is marked, like a calling card. You saw her. Mike did too, didn't he? I said nothing. Elwood's eyes softened, just for a moment. She wants an audience. She needs one. But more than that, she needs a cast. He leaned in close. Every few years, someone gets pulled in, taken, erased, recast. You've seen the footage of yourself, haven't you? I nodded. That's not a haunting, he said. That's your audition tape. My throat felt dry, my chest tight. So what happens now? I asked. Elwood stared at his coffee for a long time. Now, he said, you have a choice. Stay away, hide, hope she loses interest. Or, go back. I stared at him, stunned. Why would I go back? Because she's not done with you. He met my eyes. Because once you've been seen, you belong to the theater. And if you try to run, she'll come find you, not in the booth, not in the aisles, in your house, in your mirror, in your dreams. And because the longer you resist, the more the world forgets you. You'll vanish, one layer at a time, like old film peeling off the reel. He reached into his coat and slid something across the table. A photograph, old, yellowed, grainy. The Celestia's original projection booth. Eva Vale stood in front of the projector, smiling, but in the shadows behind her. Another figure, blurry, faint, standing just behind her shoulder. And it looked exactly like me. I pushed the photo away. No, no way, this is a trick. It's not, Elwood said. The reel isn't just film. It's a cycle, a trap, a loop narrative that feeds on identity. It uses what it absorbs to recast the roles. You're not the first, Arthur. You won't be the last. I felt sick. You said she chooses. Why me? Elwood tapped the ticket stub gently with one finger. She liked your performance. He leaned back, eyes distant. I've seen this story play out a dozen times. The Celestia reopens itself. The reel starts spinning. A new attendant is hired. He sees her. He's marked. The film shows him his fate. He resists. He loses someone close to him. Then, he trailed off. Then? I asked. He looked at me. Then, he takes his seat. I stood abruptly. No, I said. No, I'm not doing this. There has to be a way out. There is, he said quietly. He pulled something from his pocket. A lighter. Burn the reel at the end, while it's playing, before it finishes. That's the only time it's vulnerable. I hesitated. Why haven't you done it? He gave a humorless smile. Because I'm already in the credits. As I left the diner, the sun dipped below the horizon. The Celestia's marquee flickered to life behind me, without power, without permission. Now showing. The final screening, starring Arthur Marshall, tonight only. And I knew I had to go back, one last time. The keys felt heavier in my pocket than ever before, each one as cold as bone. As I walked back through the alley behind the Celestia, everything felt dreamlike, hazy, silent, suspended. Even the moon looked dimmer, like it didn't want to witness what came next. The side door was already open. Of course, it was. The theater wanted me back. Inside, the Celestia had changed. It wasn't abandoned anymore. The lights glowed like opening night. Music played faintly from hidden speakers. The crackle of old record notes warped with age. Velvet curtains hung like fresh skin along the walls. The carpet was clean. The popcorn machine churned. It was beautiful. It was wrong. A folded usher uniform waited on the ticket counter. My name was stitched into the tag. The film was already playing. I heard it before I saw it. The rhythmic click-click of the 35mm reel spooling through the projector. The screen glowed faintly through the open doors of the screening room, flickering like a dying star. I climbed to the projection booth, each step echoing like footsteps behind me. The reel was turning on its own. The lighter Elwood gave me felt warm in my palm, like it was alive, like it didn't want to be used. The film unspooled, alive with static and sound. Below, on the screen, I saw myself walking into the theater, exactly what I was doing now, frame by frame, second by second. It was live, or close enough. I reached for the reel. My fingers brushed it, and a scream burst through the speaker system. Not from the film, from the theater. I ran to the window of the booth and looked down into the seats. They were full, every single one. The audience had returned. Mike was in the front row. His eyes were gone, replaced with empty black holes like spliced frames. He smiled at me, holding his flashlight like a relic. Then he looked to his right, to row C, seat 6, my seat, and sitting beside it, Eva, the woman in white. She turned slowly. Her eyes met mine. The reel in the projector groaned. It's time. I lit the flame, held it under the spinning reel. The film sizzled. The theater screamed. Not just the speakers. The walls, the floor, the air. Like the building itself was alive and in agony. The audience began to twitch and shake, their forms glitching like corrupted data. The screen flickered wildly. Then everything stopped. Silence. Stillness. Darkness. I stood alone in the booth. The reel was gone, burned to ash. And for a moment, I believed it was over. I turned to leave. But something was wrong. The projector was still spinning, even though there was no film. I looked down at my hands. They were fading, flickering like I was being erased one frame at a time. The lighter fell through my palm. I backed up, gasping, and turned toward the mirror on the wall, and saw her, Eva, standing behind me, smiling, whispering, "You finished the reel. Now you take your seat." I screamed, but no sound came out, just static. The theater reshaping me, rewriting me into something that belonged here. My reflection in the glass was already changing, my edges softening, my face smoothing into something else, something that fits. But then I remembered Elwood's words. Burn it at the end. I hadn't. I'd burned it too soon, and now the reel was gone. But the story wasn't over, because I was the reel now. My breath came in ragged gasps as the realization hit. The projector wasn't running film. It was running me. My memories, my fear, my life feed into the theater's endless loop. Eva's grip tightened. "It's time," she murmured, I looked down at my hands, still flickering, still fading, but not gone. Not yet. I lunged for the projector. Eva shrieked, her voice splitting like torn celluloid. The audience below jerked in their seats, heads snapping toward the booth. I didn't stop. I grabbed the projector's reel arm, still spinning, still hungry, and wrenched it sideways. The machine bucked in my hands, gears grinding, film spooling loose in tangled ribbons. The image on the screen below stuttered, warped. And then, with a final, shuddering gasp, the bulb exploded. Darkness. Silence. I collapsed against the booth wall, my breath ragged. My hands were solid again. The flickering had stopped. The theater was still. Below, the seats were empty. The screen was blank. No Eva. No Mike. No audience. Just emptiness. Just the faint, acrid smell of burnt plastic and the distant echo of something settling. I didn't wait to see if it would start again. I ran out of the booth, down the stairs, through the lobby. The side door was still open. I didn't look back. The Celestia didn't reopen. Not the next night. Not the next week. The marquee stayed dark. Elwood vanished. Mike never came back. I checked the diner, the alley, the side door, all empty. No sign of the job listing. No trace of Eva. Just an old, crumbling theater with a locked door and a fading marquee. But sometimes, when I walk past it at night, I swear I hear it. The click-click of a projector starting up. And I walk faster. Because the reel isn't gone. It's just waiting. For the next one. For the next story. And I won't be in it.